Happy Friday, everybody. It is time for a Desmond Johnson show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccaroadsportsradio.com. Make sure you join us every week, twice a week now, with football being over on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can catch the best of the week on terrestrial radio on WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM, Fridays at 6 p.m. and at 5 p.m. on WWBG 1470 AM in Greensboro. Got a loaded show for you today for your lunch break. RL Bynum from the Tar Heel Tribune in the house to give us the latest on SAR freshman forward Caleb Wilson's injury. We'll talk about that, how long he might be out. Then we've got Matt Alquiza coming in from Hornets on SI to talk about the red-hot Charlotte Hornets. They beat the Hawks last night. They won 10 of their past 11 games. They're missing some players because of the brawl earlier in the week. We know all of that and the tanking issue that the NBA seems to be having right now as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. It's the Desmond Johnson Show. Let's go ahead and roll that intro.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed whack. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's fourth and inches, I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccaroadsportsradio.com. Loaded week for you today. Of course, our Friday programming starts at 3 p.m. And we've got a late night going on. Mount Tabor taking on Glenn tonight on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. It's the Truth Network Game of the Week, Mount Tabor Game of the Week. That's at 7:30 p.m. And then super late, 11 p.m. tonight, North Carolina A&T is in Los Angeles for the Chris Paul HBCU Invitational, taking on Hampton. We will be in the house, myself and Spencer Turkin on the call. That is a 10:30 p.m. pregame, 11 o'clock tip-off. So if you want to hear some Aggie action late night on the West Coast, you can check us out here on tobaccaroadsportsradio.com. RL Bynum in the house from the Tar Heel Tribune. And, of course, the biggest question that's out there right now, RL, I had to come grab you because we got some bad news if you're a Carolina fan yesterday. They didn't just lose the game in Miami on Tuesday. They lost their best player as well. Caleb Wilson, who has led Carolina all year. I think he leads the nation still in dunks. He's the leader in rebounding. He's their leading scorer. He's now out indefinitely with a fractured left hand. Tell us what you've been hearing here as you're reporting on this in terms of the severity of the injury and how long he might possibly be out.
That's about all we know right now. It sounds like the medical staff is still determining what the timeline might be. And, given his prospects in the NBA, they're not going to push him back sooner than he should come back, I'm quite sure. So I'm expecting several games, but we really don't know for sure. But we do know it's a devastating loss for the Tar Heels, and it's going to lead to just you can't just tweak roles. It's going to be a dramatic shift in their identity playing without Caleb Wilson, because he brought so much attention. Directly, it's going to affect Henry Visar. He's going to get a lot more attention. He's going to get a lot more double teams, and it's going to be incumbent on the rest of the players to shoot better from 3-point range to kind of create some more spacing for Henry.
It feels like they're going to have to go back to small ball a little bit, because I was sitting there looking at the roster, and we'll get back to Caleb here in just a second, but looking at the roster right now, they have Henry Visar as their big, Jaron Stevenson 6'9", 6'10", so he'll probably by default become the other big man in the starting lineup. And then, if I'm not mistaken, James Brown is actually hurt too, correct?
Correct, yeah. So, that's a problem, and it means that Zayden High, who just would come in for a few minutes, and many Carolina fans would cringe as he came onto the court. He's played a little bit better of late, but he's really going to have to step up his game because with as you said, Jaron Stevenson probably starting at the 4, somebody else is going to have to come in for backup 5, and that's going to be Zayden High. So he's going to really have to step his game up. And what happens if Henry Visar gets into foul trouble? He's going to have to play lots of minutes, or it's going to be, like you said, small ball with Jaron at the 5 and filling out the lineup with wings and guards.
Yeah. So going back to Caleb, it's his left hand. They did scan it in Miami on Saturday, and he did return to the game with a wrap on his hand due to the fact that they did not see any kind of fracture on first scan or whatnot. So I'm kind of just spitballing here, but I would assume, they saw it when they came back to Chapel Hill the following day or whatever, and then they made the announcement or whatnot. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, they didn't see it on the initial. Does that mean it's not as severe, that it's a slight fracture and something where he might be able to be back here fairly soon? And then Caleb Wilson posted this morning on Instagram that he is going to be back this season and he will be playing. So didn't put out there when or how. Is there anything against wearing like a hard cast or something like that for an injury like this? Is that possibility maybe like in a couple of weeks? Because Duke is 2 Saturdays away from now, if I'm not mistaken. I'm assuming he might be aiming to get back by Duke.
Who's to say that the good part is it's not his shooting hand, but still that I mean, you could tell when he came back in the second half, he didn't want to use that left hand, and it was definitely throwing him off and making him more hesitant and making him, he just looked more tentative, even though he scored 7 straight Carolina points when he came back. So yeah, it looks like a brace on the picture that he posted on Instagram rather than a cast. That may be a good sign. I don't know, but yeah, it's troubling. But you gotta hope he comes back by the time the Duke game happens. But they're not gonna rush him back if it looks like he might do further damage. That's for sure. And
No.
yeah, they're just weird that the X-rays in Miami just didn't seem like it was just a sprain, and then we get the big news on Thursday that it's a little bit different, and it's just reminds you of injuries down the line to guys like Kendall Marshall and Kenny Smith. Who, it's Carolina seems to have a history of hand and wrist injuries that take a team that has national championship potential. I don't know that this team was in that category, but other teams with national championship potential who just got derailed by an injury like that.
Yeah, and it happened late in the season for Kenny and for Kendall, and PJ Harrison, Kendall Marshall's teammate on that 2012 team, says that was a national championship roster, and I agree. They were the number 1 team in the country that year until it was them in Kentucky. They went back and forth until they lost Kendall to that wrist injury to Crichton, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the same team that Kenny hurt his wrist.
Ethan Raji was the Creighton player who committed the hard foul that changed that season for the Tar Heels.
Yeah,
it was John Tudor in January of LSU that clotheslined Kenny Smith and changed that season.
LSU, that's what it was. Now a little bit different because we have played without a starter before. Seth Trimble broke his forearm early in the year, and he missed 9 games with a broken left forearm. But but we went 8-1, and actually, I think it was an opportunity for the bench to kind of figure out roles while he was out. So that wasn't as bad, but. Seth Trimble is not a top 5 potential NBA lottery pick, though. And they've got 5 quad 1 games coming up here in this next 7 games. Now I won't say they get a little bit of a break Saturday. They are undefeated at home, but they do play Pitt, who is struggling. That is this Saturday at 2 p.m. on the ACC network. Then they get NC State on Tuesday, which will be on the road in Raleigh, which will be their first test there. If you had to guess what the starting lineup is going to be by the time we get to Tuesday, what would you put out there? Like, what would RL put out there, knowing you don't have the services of Caleb Wilson And it's kind of late in the season to completely change what you do as a team. But I do think that you'll see more of the wings getting more action. Jonathan Powell, maybe we see Isaiah Dennis, which we haven't really seen all year. Some minutes will start to, open up here for some guys. What do you think will be the starting lineup for Carolina when they get to Raleigh on Tuesday?
Well, your locks are Derek Dixon at point, Seth Trimble, Jaron Stevenson at the 4, Henry Visar at the 5. Bogovac has been more of a factor on offense. He's been more consistent with his 3-pointers. He's been a little better on defense. So I would side with him, but I do think that Jonathan Powell will probably get as many minutes. And and then the other wings will get some time too. What you have to consider, you want to have somebody who can help on the rebounding end, because Caleb Wilson was the leading rebounder. Jonathan Powell has shown that he can get in there and get rebounds, and that may sway Coach Davis to put him in instead of Bogovac, but Bogovac would be my guess.
And the problem is, I've actually said all year that the main important player for this Carolina offense wasn't Wilson per se. He's the most talented, but really to me it was Henry Visar. In terms of what he was doing, he almost made it hard to depend on double teaming Wilson when you've got another 7-footer down there in the paint that you can just kind of lob it over top of. And they did a lot of that 4-5 lob type stuff. That changes now because Jaron Stevenson is not going to command the same type of respect on defense as Caleb Wilson was commanding. I'm just thinking about that stretch in the first half during that Duke game where, Carolina was falling on 12, 13 points, and Caleb Wilson just took over for like 4 or 5 possessions and kind of leveled the ship. And then they got them ready for the second half. This is huge. This is really huge for a Carolina team that, at this time last week, I was saying they have a good shot to get a top 4 ACC seed. Now I'm just sitting here wondering, is that even a possibility? Because besides NC State on Tuesday, you still have to play Clemson. They'll come to Chapel Hill, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
You have to go to Syracuse. Well, of course, we have to go to Duke to finish the season. And Louisville. I believe Louisville comes to Chapel Hill as well. So you've got these, ranked top 25 teams coming into Chapel Hill and us going on the road to take on some of these teams. And you had quad 1 opportunities, and now it feels like, I wish we'd had those at the beginning of the year instead of here at the end of the year for the Tar Heels. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm under the impression, just from what I'm seeing from Carolina and from what Wilson's doing on social media, that I don't think it's going to be very long. Just with Trimble missing, how many actual weeks did Seth Trimble miss? It said it's 9 games, but how many weeks was that? Like a month? About a month, some change. And that was something where that's a bigger bone, that's a bigger deal with it being his offhand. And if they have a way to do it where he can wear some sort of hard, soft cast or something after a couple of weeks, if he's cleared to play, I've seen people saying that he won't play because of, NBA and yada, yada, yada. And I just saw that it looks like Darren Peterson from Kansas is pulling the plug on the season, is not going to play any more games this season to prepare for the NBA draft, which is wild because it's February the 13th and Kansas is ranked in the top 25. So, and he's missed half the games this year anyway, it feels like, with injury. But
Right.
Caleb Love isn't wired that way. He seems like a true Tar Heel. I've got, B-Dot and PJ Harrison, my Aaron Believe in Hills Hoops, telling me they think he might possibly stay and come back for sophomore year. And I was like, no way. He's a top 5 pick. He's going to go. But then the more I start thinking about it, this is a very loaded draft. We've talked about this freshman class across the country. How far-fetched would it be for Carolina to, in today's NIL college basketball world, to throw $4 or $5 million at Caleb Wilson for him to return for sophomore year and potentially be the number 1 pick in the draft next year? Do you think there's any possibility of that happening?
I don't. And you have to recognize that, it is a loaded draft. And I don't know what the projections are for the 27 draft, but they're drafting for potential. They're drafting for ceiling, and it's so high for Caleb Wilson. I think that getting hurt would probably only make him more determined to go ahead and go, so that he doesn't risk another injury if he comes back. So I don't think it'll happen.
Tar Heel Tribune beat writer RL Bynum in the house. Stick around. Matt Alquiza from Hornets on SI will join us here in just a bit. Before I get you out of here, though, some news from the women's side. The Carolina women's basketball program has been playing in Carmichael for, since its inception or whatnot. But some news coming down the line that was reported on TarHeelTribune.com. They still know exactly what they're going to do in terms of the Smith Center, building a new arena or renovating the Smith Center. I'm in the group of the former players and Roy Williams, somebody else saying just renovate the Smith Center. And I think it best illustrated why you should renovate the Smith Center instead of building a new arena of what happened Saturday night. You don't get the scene on Franklin Street. You don't get the scene outside the arena after Carolina beat Duke if the arena is at Carolina North or whatever. It's you walk out the arena, you're right there. And I think it would be cool actually if they took a year, renovated the Smith Center, gutted it out, maybe get rid of. I mean, it doesn't have to be 19,000 seats or whatever it is. If you really want suites or whatever, gut it down to 14,000, make the room for the suites and all that stuff. Like just gut the interior out and let the boys and the girls play at Carmichael for a year and then have them come back to Smith. What are your thoughts on if they should renovate or if they should build a new one?
There are a lot of factors here. It would be their plan is for a 16,000 seat arena, whichever option they select. But the people who are advocating for the renovation don't talk about the fact that because they want a practice facility for the women and the men in a renovation scenario, they have to tear down the Corey Auditorium. So they have to build another facility for the swimming and diving team. That adds more money. You also, they're not going to be able to play all their games in Carmichael. They'd be losing too much money. So they'd end up probably playing in Greensboro. Now,
I can see that.
If you're a one and done player, and you're saying, well, gosh, if I go to Carolina, half of my home games aren't going to even be in Chapel Hill. Do I really want to do that? Carolina might not be all that attractive. So you got to weigh that also. I think the administration clearly wants the Carolina North option, and they're getting major blowback from former players, from Roy Williams to renovate. But there's some issues in renovating that clearly that they have to overcome.
So I do see in this article, and you can see this article and the article about Caleb Wilson at TarHeelTribune.com in terms of the 5 new options for an arena. Most likely you've got on your Carolina North site. Other sites include the Bowls lot at Odom Village and at Friday Center, or just replacing the Smith Center. But in this actual article you have here, the Carolina women are going to stop playing at Carmichael too. So when this is done and they get this built, this is set for whenever they build into the new arena, correct? Like this will be 3-4, which we don't have an exact date for yet because they don't know where they're going to build. But if I'm not mistaken from reading your article, they will start playing in the new arena with the men and leave Carmichael. There's other stuff that happens in Carmichael. They're not going to tear it down or anything, but that would be the case if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Right. Every arena option would have the women's program playing there, and the facility would include a practice facility for the men and the women. And Carmichael has also been the home for wrestling, gymnastics, and volleyball, and I would expect that would continue. But it's if you'll remember in 1986 when they went from Carmichael Auditorium to the Smith Center, there was a lot of excitement about the Smith Center, but a lot of sadness and nostalgia about Carmichael. And the hardcore women's fans will be going through that soon. And some of the reaction I saw on social media, very little of it was positive because let's face it, the women's program gets 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 a game, and Carmichael's a tremendous atmosphere, a big home court advantage, but you might lose that in a bigger arena, and you'll probably have curtains. I know when I was in Miami on Tuesday, I noticed they had big curtains at the top of the arena, which I'm sure they brought down for women's games. So you probably have that, and that would leave NC State as the only school in the ACC that has the women's team, the men's team playing separate facilities.
Or at Reynolds, yeah. So
Yep.
It's crazy. Just the nostalgist in me. I'd love it if the men played just maybe an early game at Carmichael earlier in the year, like against maybe like an Elon or whoever it might be, because they don't fill up the Smith Center for those games.
Or the exhibition game that they play, whoever that might be.
like if they have like Winston State or somebody come in for exhibition or whatever it might be, to do it at Carmichael and have it on TV would be pretty cool. I don't know what they're going to do. I know change is inevitable. It's starting to look like they probably will build something over on the other side of campus, which will be sad. PJ was describing how, the men's basketball dorm is right there, like at Smith Center. Like you literally walk out the door, walk, around the back and the sidewalk, and it's right there. So you're able to interact with fans and everything else. But after a game, you're walking over before the game. So it wouldn't be there anymore. You wouldn't, the dorm, unless they build dorms over wherever they're building the new arena as well. But you're going to be kind of on the edge campus. So we'll keep an eye on that too. So a lot of Carolina news. So I had to make sure we got RL on to fill us in on all that stuff. Make sure you follow his stuff over at the Tar Heel Tribune. And we will be talking to you soon as we keep track of whatever's going on with Carolina hoops.
All right. Always good to be with you, Desmond. Take care.
All right. And there he goes. It's RL Bynum from the Tar Heel Tribune. And bringing in next, we got ourselves a NBA team here in the state of North Carolina. They're called the Charlotte Hornets, and they are one of the hottest teams in basketball. They are 15-7 in 2026 in the year 2026. The core three for the Hornets, Brandon Miller's averaging 21.5 points a game. Knuckle averaging 18.4. LaMelo Ball averaging 18.2. Charlotte is currently sitting at 9th in the Eastern Conference. They just defeated the Atlanta Hawks last night as we bring in Matt Alquiza from Hornets on SI. What's going on, brother? Like I said, last time I saw you, I'm assuming this year is much, much more fun to cover the Charlotte Hornets than previous years where you've had to watch them not tanking at this point, but just losing games helplessly. What's the vibe with Matt Alquiza watching these Charlotte Hornets each night?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. No kidding. It's been a blast watching this team. Obviously, they're winning games, and that is cool. And every time I pull up to the Spectrum Center, it feels like the game has more meaning to it, especially compared to last year when at this point of the year, Brandon Miller was out for the year. LaMelo was in and out of the lineup. So for them to be playing meaningful basketball in mid-February, it's just a lot of fun. And on top of that, they're playing a really fun brand of basketball too. They're exciting. They're one of the best offensive teams in the league. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league over this past couple of weeks. So not only are they winning games, they're playing entertaining basketball, and they're young too. So there's no guaranteed future in the NBA, but where the Hornets are at right now, the youth on their side, on the coaching staff, the new ownership group, and everything that they have, publicly said they have planned for the organization, it is all arrows pointing up for the Hornets, and it's a really fun time to be around the team.
They won last night over Atlanta, 110-107, holding off a comeback attempt from the Hawks. Brandon Miller had 31 points and 9 rebounds last night. LaMelo Ball had 7 3-pointers. He scored 24 points. Knuckle started off hot in the first quarter. I think he had like 4 threes or something like that in the first quarter. They held on to win. Talk to me a little bit about the suspended players, Miles Bridges, Musa Diabate, who got suspended for the fight with Detroit earlier in the week. And is it just me, or does Detroit seem like they're just angry all the time? Like that team seems like they're just mad. And I get it from, that's kind of like their mentality. And they're going into the All-Star break with the best record. I know in the Eastern Conference, it might be in the whole NBA. I think they did catch up to the leaders over in the West. So thoughts on that? Could that potentially be a playoff matchup? Detroit, Charlotte, that sounds like something I might be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit is just angry, is what it feels like. They just play a physical style of basketball. I mean, they have a bunch of dogged defenders on their team, so like they're going to beat you up and they're going to beat you. Like you said, best record in the Eastern Conference. I think they're like 40-13 or something like that, which is crazy because they were legitimately the worst team in the league just 2 years ago.
They were with us in the draft lottery. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
their turnaround has been like pretty unprecedented. So it's cool to see that a team can go from the bottom to the top so quickly. Hopefully, we'll get the Charlotte Hornets there sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, the fight on Monday was crazy. I've never experienced something like that in person before.
Right, it was in Charlotte, right?
Yeah, it was wild. Just like watching the whole scene unfold in front of us in the arena. So, a potential first-round matchup, Detroit and Charlotte. I think that would be awful for the Hornets. I think they match up just horribly with the Pistons. Like I said, the physical nature of their defense, forcing the referees to blow their whistle on every possession, which they're not going to do, has like stymied the Hornets in the past. Charlotte lost by like 27 to Detroit earlier in the season. kind of like right when their turnaround started. So yeah, definitely a potential matchup. As of right now, Charlotte is 9th in the East. So for them to win two play-in games to get into the tournament, they would end up playing Detroit in round 1. So definitely can't rule out a potential Charlotte versus Detroit series. It would be fun for the narrative. There would be, I mean, no less than 10, 15, 20 replays of the fight in the first couple of games of that series, but I think that would be a rough one for the Hornets, honestly.
Yeah, so I don't wish Detroit. I just think it might be a good series for these Hornets.
It would be.
I want Hornets to get higher, than the
yeah.
eighth, like push it up in there. And the East is in flux right now. We do have some post game audio courtesy of the Hornets Radio Network. We are the provider of the Charlotte Hornets Radio Network here in the Triad. If you ever want to hear Hornets games, you can hear them free on WWBG 1470 AM. They'll be back on the 19th against the Rockets, I believe, at home. At 7:00. So you can hear that game, with the crew on the radio, the Charlotte Hornets Radio Network. But this is courtesy of the Charlotte Hornets Radio Network. Some post-game comments from Con Knueppel.
I know this is kind of always a strange game. Last game before the All-Star break, you guys were missing a pair of starters. What did you think about collectively how you guys kind of came together in this one? You had guys taking on bigger roles to find a way to win at the end and make 2 defensive plays that you needed to head to the All-Star break with a win.
Yeah, I thought we did a really good job. Something that I talk about, and it goes back to my time at Duke, Shire talked about a ton, was inflection points. So it's where runs mean a little bit more at the end of quarters, at the start of quarters, start of games. So I thought we did a really good job in those periods of the game. I thought we finished well defensively, and I thought we started really, really well offensively to start the game. And so I think those kind of carried us and, helped us weather the storms of their runs.
Talk to me a little bit about the maturity of Con Knueppel, and can he overtake Cooper Flagg for Rookie of the Year? Because ever since they had that meeting about a week and a half ago, Cooper Flagg's been on a tear, but now Cooper Flagg, if I'm not mistaken, is injured. I think he has a sprained foot. So what do you think? Is Con in a position where he can catch Cooper Flagg? Because they basically gutted the Dallas roster. It's just the Cooper Flagg show at this point. No one knows if Kyrie's going to be back sometime this year. They traded off Anthony Davis, who now has decided he's just not going to play the rest of this year in DC. We'll get to the tanking stuff in just a bit, but thoughts on Con and what you've seen. I don't think any of us expected this when they drafted Con Knueppel, like, at all. If I'm not mistaken, he just broke the record for fastest rookie to 100 threes in a season or something like that. Like, he just demolished the record. It's February, and he just crushed this thing. What are your thoughts when you see Con Knueppel now in February? After you've seen him so many times now, you're just like, you're probably expecting a certain Con Knueppel type game, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's second in the league in threes made right now. I mean, among all players. I think Donovan Mitchell has 185, Con has 183. I'm pretty sure is like the most recent tally for those two guys. I mean, it's unprecedented what he is doing as a shooter right now. And it's more than just that. He's more than just like this catch and shoot guy. He's going to give you a couple of threes off the dribble here and there. He's going to pull up in transition and knock them down. And then when you play up on his body and you try to take away the 3-point shot, he's good enough, strong enough, fast enough to get by defenders and make plays in the restricted area too, whether that's kicking out to teammates in the corner or getting up shots for himself, getting fouled, the whole deal. So yeah, I mean, the maturity is unreal, really. I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid. Every time he steps up to the podium, sounds like a 10-year vet, and that's the way he plays as well. I mean, he's just been a godsend for this Hornets team, this organization. Charles Lee, his first year in Charlotte, just spoke about a Hornets DNA all the time and how they're trying to build more than just like a good basketball team, but a culture that like cultivates winning and like, bringing that like to the city of Charlotte, which is something they've never had here. And I mean, they're 30 years of having basketball in Charlotte. They've made one Eastern Conference Finals, I'm pretty sure. So, for them to like really start, maybe not an Eastern Conference Finals.
I don't even know if they've done that. Yeah.
Not super well versed on my 80s Hornets, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, his maturity is unreal. It is like the number one defining factor for him. And you combine it with how good he has been as a player. I mean, it's like the perfect combination, exactly what this team needed. In terms of Rookie of the Year, if Cooper Flagg is hurt, misses 2 or 3 weeks, then yeah, I mean, Con is absolutely going to like usurp him for that award. Con has matched him statistically in every category except for scoring. Con is like averaging like 3 or 4 less points per game, but he's doing it so efficiently, like historically efficient for any player, not just a rookie. So yeah, definitely has a shot to win the award. I think even if Cooper Flagg does play the rest of the season, with Charlotte continuing to run their way up the Eastern Conference standings and how big of a part of that Con has been, I think he's not done in the Rookie of the Year race quite yet.
Got some more audio from last night. Here's head coach Charles Lee discussing the Hornets win over the Atlanta Hawks, courtesy of the Hornets radio network.
Charles, I know this one got probably a little closer at the end than you would have liked, but what did you think of your guys' resilience there to kind of make the plays that you needed to down the stretch, specifically Brandon getting back and breaking up in that 2-on-1 that would have put Atlanta up, I think, if they made the layup?
Yeah, no, very proud of our group tonight. I thought that all night, the focus on trying to get better defensively, find more ways to get stops was evident. And I thought we threw a lot of different coverages at Atlanta, at our guys, and they executed them pretty well. And to protect the paint at the level at which we did, to try to make it tough on Johnson. I think we all remember he had 31 on us last game, and to get that number down tonight was huge for us. Alexander Walker, same type of thing, to make it difficult on him. So overall, love the team's activity. And we came in talking about we got to be better in transition. Thought it was a little bit better, but the biggest play of the game is in transition. And like you said, Brandon showing his hands, getting a deflection, getting us another stop at the end of the game was important. And I even thought Melo, I thought some of our coverage execution wasn't as good in the first half because he didn't read, he didn't switch, or, he didn't communicate.
So just a little bit there from Charles Lee post game after the Hornets beat the Hawks last night on 110-107. Thoughts on Charles Lee? Because this is his first head coaching gig, and kind of start off a little rocky in the beginning and felt like a repeat of previous seasons. LaMelo was getting injured, Brandon Miller was hurt, and we've seen this movie before, but he's made some decisions that have had Hornet fans kind of scratching their heads a little bit. Like when LaMelo came back, he was bringing them off the bench, minute restrictions. They've kind of loosened that up now a little bit, but it's allowed them to have LaMelo in the fourth quarter, which is something that they didn't really have a lot of before. So real quick before I get you out of here, thoughts on Charles Lee and what he's done to transform this franchise?
Yeah, he's been great, man. I have nothing but positives to say about Charles Lee, especially kind of after he had some questionable rotations at the end of games earlier in the year. I think the whole bringing LaMelo off the bench deal was more than just a Charles Lee decision. He was the figurehead for that because he's the one that had to face the media before and after every game that LaMelo came off the bench. But that decision is made by the entire franchise. There's the training staff, the front office staff, the analytics staff. All of those guys are making that decision. That's not Charles Lee unilaterally saying, LaMelo, you're coming off the bench on a back-to-back. And Jeff Peterson even kind of took the blame for that in a radio interview after the trade deadline. He said that was his idea. So, yeah, I think Charles is doing a great job. I mean, for them to have, over the past 2-month stretch, a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense, basically, is a credit to him and his staff and the way that they are maximizing the talent that they have. Obviously, the Hornets have these individually brilliant offensive players, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Concanipple. Those guys are going to have a good offense no matter what, just because of their individual talent. But Charles and his staff are maximizing that talent and pulling every ounce of talent that they have out of them. But then the top 5 defense is where I think he gets a ton of credit. Because you look at the Hornets, they don't have an all defense level defender on their team at all. Moussa Diabate has done a great job, but he's a tier down from the Rudy Gobert's, the Steven Adams as another guy I think of as a good big man defender. So he's not that, but they have a top 5 defense in the NBA over a 2-month stretch because of the way they decided to play this analytically minded approach. They don't give up corner threes, they don't foul, and they don't give up offensive rebounds. So they're doing the little things on defense in order to, again, maximize the talent they have. And a lot of that credit goes to the coaching staff and the way they're scheming up this defense from night to night. They're doing a fantastic job. I mean, I think Charles Lee is 4th or 5th right now in the coach of the year odds on FanDuel. I would be shocked if he's not top 3 in the next month or two. Especially
if they keep playing the way they're playing. The Hornets almost near 500 here in the middle of February. Of course, they're off now for the All-Star break. They will host Houston. I might try to go to Charlotte to watch that game. They host Houston Thursday, February the 19th, 7 o'clock tip-off. You can hear it on Tobacco Road Sports Radio or through Tobacco Road Sports Radio through the Hornets Radio Network on WWBG 1470 AM. Matt, I know you got to get out of here, so we're going to go ahead and stop right there. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll give you an ACC roundup with David Glenn. Probably some more surprises as well as we keep track of what's going on with Caleb Wilson's injury and all the ACC hoops action will be going on over the course of this weekend. So we will talk to you guys on Tuesday on another edition of the Desmond Johnson Show.